Chair of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners, Mary Starrett. I'd like to invite her up to deliver the State of the County Address. This acts as a little laser pointer, and I'll move your presentation over here in a second.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, Zach. Figure out the technology. How's that? Can you hear me now? All righty. Well, I'm going to use this opportunity to brag about our county, and in that I hope you all take a lot of pride, because I'm looking around the room and it's a lot of familiar faces of people who are extremely engaged in this community, and without it we really don't get to claim the successes that we have without a lot of the community partners, which I'm going to spend a little more time on. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Well, my name is Mary Starrett. I'm this year's chair of the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners. I serve with Commissioner Stan Primizich, who is here with his wife Janice, and with Alan Springer. And we have we've spent an awful lot of time in the last few months working on the budget, and I want to spend some time talking about the budget just so that you get an idea of what the fiscal condition of the county is, but also what I want to focus on is that this county and the state of the county is so much more than budget numbers and things like that. So bear with me as we go through some charts and graphs and numbers that you'll be able to take away and get a better idea of what the condition of the county is. So at this particular point in time, I want to say that we owe a great debt of gratitude to our employees, all 610 of them, and to our administration and our department heads, and all of the people who have worked to make this county. I have to say, this is not your usual government entity. We come to these positions sometimes thinking that government at the county level, or at least in this county, is going to be like it is at the state or federal level, with waste and no transparency and things like that. Well, I can say from my experience, because I was expecting to see that it's lean, and that our county employees and department heads are extremely, extremely dedicated. And I've seen people absolutely with such great hearts and such compassion for those most vulnerable take their jobs very seriously. That being said, I want to also talk about the citizen advisory committees. We don't do this work without input from citizen advisory committees, and we'll talk about that later. And also the budget committee. Angel Aguiar and Shelley Hallman and Chris McLaren worked on this budget and volunteered many hours to figure it out and to be quite committed to that as well. What I wanted to talk about is basically that what kind of form of government we have now in the county is something that was the earliest form of local government in the United States back in 1617. The counties were the first form of government, and we still see that. We actually have records from 1623 of various county government functions. We have 36 counties in Oregon. I happen to think we're the best, and the reason that I say that is because as a member of Association of Oregon Counties, we get to regularly get together with other county commissioners, and what I hear them talking about really points to the difference that we have in our county, because we have people who come to work and really truly are committed to what they do. We have 718 miles and 103,000 people in this county, and each one of them is important to not only the government but the local nonprofits. A little bit of background on the county commissioners. The county commissioners basically function as your local legislative body, kind of a combination of quasi-judicial. I see we have Judge Ladd Wiles here. Definitely not stepping on any judicial toes on this, but quasi-judicial, legislative, and an executive body all rolled into one. They put together the budget, and they work with other elected officials like our assessor, our clerk, our sheriff, and who else? And our treasurer. Our organizational chart, you probably can't read this very well, but what this speaks to is we've got, as I said, 610 employees. We've got different department heads, a lot of them headed by elected officials, and what this is about is delivering excellent customer service. And before I worked for the county, I experienced that in that if you make a phone call, very few times is there a complaint about the customer service you receive. So, to the budget now. Well, let me just talk about this. We've seen a 22% growth in our county just in the last few years. So we're on target for even more growth. And as far as employment goes, now we know that agriculture, we've got about 1,000 agricultural families, but that's the mainstay of our county. But as far as the statistics, we've got educational, health, and social services, 19%, professional scientific management and waste management, 18.5%, and manufacturing, 16%. So the health of a county is really related to, as we were talking about, that diversity. When one sector is not doing well, at least you can rely on the other sector. Want to talk about homelessness and to acknowledge Jeff Sargent with YCAP. YCAP recently completed their point-in-time homeless count, and I know my husband was part of that count one year, and the stories that you hear, these are not numbers, these are individual people who are living on the streets or are precariously housed, as Jeff explained to me, and what that means is that's the term that's couch surfing. Don't have a home, but are relying on the good graces of family and friends, and when that goes away, where are these people living? So the number of homeless are about 1,197, but HUD does not recognize, from what Jeff told me, those 472 people who are precariously housed. Those are considered homeless people. And the way the county is addressing that through a variety of different initiatives, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with, this homeless issue isn't going away, but it is being addressed. Our economic indicators are really pretty healthy. We're seeing that tax revenue is up 3 to 5% since 2013. We've had a 5% increase, total assessed increase for the value for this past tax year. We've got new residential and commercial building permits, which is really awesome when you look at the number, up about 50%. Our planning department relies strictly on the revenue from these building permits. So that department is doing well and is very healthy. Residential home sales are up 10%. And what's interesting is I found out that some forecasts in the Portland area are saying that where Portland is right now, they're expecting us to be in the next 2 years or so. So while our housing is doing well, this is really going to be an improvement. But it's also a double-edged sword, because it's going to make buying a home even less affordable for middle class and lower middle class or starter homes. So, but Yamhill County was one of the 10 counties with an unemployment rate below the statewide level, and also one of the counties which is below the national rate. Now let's talk about the budget, and I'm going to whiz through this, but I really want you to know that we can ask questions, but I just don't want to bore you with numbers that you probably can't see. Basically, our personnel costs, and remember that only 17 cents of every one of your property tax dollars, only 17% of your property taxes go to fund county government. The rest comes from state and federal revenue or from permits or interest and things like that. But our personnel costs are about 37% of our budget. That's down 4% due to a variety of things. That's pretty good in government when you can say that your personnel costs are down. Want to talk about the reason we have an increase, for instance, in our Health and Human Services budget. That's because we have additional state and federal money that's coming into the county that's to deal with required services. The state requires that we fund what's called behavioral health. That's mental health, addiction services, and things like crisis intervention. So we get more money from the state, so that's why our budget looks bigger. Our transit budget is up $1.5 million. Why is that? Well, we have these energy tax credits that we're going to try to sell, and we sell those to businesses who then get a tax break for buying them. So when we sell them, we'll have that revenue, hopefully, fingers crossed, and that will be good for our transit department. Tax revenue is up 3 to 5% since 2013. County sources of revenue. Basically, we're getting money from the state government, from federal government, from building permits, and from, for instance, the clerk's office. The clerk's office used to be totally self-sustaining. When they had marriage licenses and recording fees, they actually had so much money. They also take care of elections. They had so much money they were actually helping to fund other county departments. Well, that's not the case anymore, because, as you know, the economy took a dive, and that really did affect things. So now they're not necessarily sharing any of their money. And here's a look at where your property taxes go. As you know from probably past presentations, the lion's share of your money is going to criminal justice or health and human services. Now, if you look down there in the corner on the left, health and human services only gets 7.9% of your county money. That's because the majority of it is coming from the state and it's coming from the federal government. Some counties give no money to health and human services. Let you know what health and human services encompasses, and it encompasses a lot. It's public health, it's developmental disabilities, adult behavioral health, that's addictions, things like that, community support services, family and youth, that's another big one, veterans, enhanced residential services, which the county has made a commitment through. I have to say good things about Silas Halloran Steiner is our Health and Human Services Director, who probably has, I always tell him he's not human. This man has a compassion and a heart and a fervor for this community, and he absolutely has I have never seen him lose patience with any of the many different intense situations that he has to be in as a result of his department. A little bit of information if you're interested what internal services is, and you'll see that up there. Internal services, that's property insurance. Things that are kind of boring, nothing sexy about having to pay for property insurance or administration or our county council, but that as well. As I said, our clerk now is getting ready for elections, and he's also dealing with an influx of new registered voters with motor voter, and so that's costing the county more money. And we're hoping that we'll be able to stay above water with that. Intergovernmental department, that comes from state money coming to us. As far as criminal justice, what that department funds, and that's the department that is taking the lion's share of your property taxes, that one over there on your right. And that's the DA's office, that's the sheriff's department, that's jail, Marine Patrol, that's Yamhill County Interagency Narcotics Team, and that basically is the nexus for all of the drug dealers and anybody who has any kind of influence with narcotics in our county. That covers courthouse security and jail bed rental, which comes from, we rent the jail beds out and we use the money that we get for capital improvements. Community services, that takes into account the law library, which is something that the state mandates. Now, it's a teeny tiny room in one of the county buildings, and we have a part-time law librarian there, and yet we are mandated by the state to provide this to attorneys or people who might want to come in. Mediation, we have, where's our, there she is, Marlene, thank you. With your community mediators, and the county funds that as well. Not as much as we'd like to, but really does an awful lot of work with truancy, neighbor disputes, variety of different things. So thank you for that. And our county schools get 25% forest funds. Culture and recreation is parks and the fair. The fair, believe it or not, we've got the oldest fair in the state, and it's mandated. It is a state mandate that you have a county fair. Who knew? We happen to do a really good job, and Commissioner Primozic could tell you that we've got some awesome headliners coming up in August. The Sheriff's Office for the next fiscal year is actually 3% less than the current fiscal, here we go, than the current fiscal year. And that is in addition to, not only did they reduce the number of personnel, but in addition to keeping their budget 3% lower, they've done this by also instituting a new program, and that is that patrol officers carry with them naloxone or Narcan, which is an anti-overdose medication, and that, working with one of our community partners, Provoking Hope, who are staffed by addicts themselves who are in recovery, go out as soon as there's a call from someone who's overdosed, and this is someone who would die without this intervention with this Narcan. So the patrol officers are going out, they're administering this drug, and they're bringing along certified recovery mentors from Provoking Hope, which is a faith-based organization we partner with, and as soon as those addicts, are revived, they bring them to the point where they can say, I need help, and then come with me. We're not going to send them off on their own and figure out how to get clean and sober. And it's been an amazing program. Soon after the program was instituted, someone's life was saved. And it's happened over and over again. The Yamhill County Sheriff's Office also supervises a 259-bed jail. The Department of Community Justice, and this is where I think we really need a lot of bragging rights around this department. This department's got a lot of national attention, been recognized by the National Criminal Justice Association, and our department head, Ted Smetana, who sadly is leaving us, has reduced the population within his department, with their help, reduced jail population by 22%. Also, that translates into a 27% reduction in the number of prison beds. You know, when you move them out of jail and send them on to prison, well, that's not happening. And that's because they're doing a lot of pretrial work. There was recently a pretrial summit here in McMinnville. We had 15 jurisdictions. We had people from the state and federal and state, and Yamhill County is sharing its information on how to keep people safely in the community who can be released, and also how to retain those who need to be in jail. We've been recognized for using more evidence-based, you've heard that term, evidence-based policies to determine which defendants should stay in. Something else which has happened, which I think really speaks to, you want to talk about statistics, they have reduced their failure to appear rate for inmates, for those who have been charged, by from 17% down to 2%. And the reason they've done that is they have something called CANS, and that's court something notification system, where they basically call your cell phone, text, email, whatever, that says you've got a court date tomorrow and you need to show up. It's very expensive when people don't show up for their court dates. Everyone's all dressed up, ready for a party, and then you don't have somebody there to show up. So this has reduced it down to 2%. I think that's really impressive. That saves the county money. Recovery courts. Can't say enough about the recovery courts in this county, and the mental health courts. When somebody is mentally ill and commits a crime or acts out in the community, or someone who has an addiction issue winds up getting involved with being arrested, we have found out through these courts, and I've been to some of the graduations, and it's pretty phenomenal to see people who have lost their kids, lost their job, lost their way, basically homeless, come before a judge and go through a program that might take as long as 2 years to learn how to get their act together, get their kids back, and graduate in that courtroom. It's pretty amazing. Then they go on to help other addicts as certified recovery mentors. So we have found in this county, and it really works, we can't incarcerate ourselves out of mental illness, and we can't incarcerate ourselves out of drug addiction. What works is treatment and giving people another shot. And we've got some awesome people and some awesome judges who really deal with them. But I've also seen, on the other hand, when some people are not towing the line and going with the program, that a deputy will come in, cuff them up, take them to jail, but then they're back again the next month to be able to work their program and get clean and sober. What's exciting about what Health and Human Services is doing is this particular coming up fiscal year, they're working on treatment and recovery supports for people who have issues with addiction. And that means keeping the mothers and their kids together in residential homes. And that's what a lot of your tax dollars are going to fund, because when somebody gets their kids and the kid doesn't have to go to foster care, and not only is it a tax saver, but you're saving on a child who is not going to be involved in the criminal justice system. We have housing supports now for people with mental illness. And you want to talk about how this affects the homelessness issue. A lot of folks who are homeless have mental health issues. If we can find a way to keep them out of long-term state-sponsored psychiatric care, keep them in the community with whatever support system they still have left, and manage to work with them and what they call wraparound services, that's where Health and Human Services really does excel, and with also our community partners. We do peer support services with our local nonprofits, and I can't say enough about how active they have been with our county. So there's going to be an emphasis on secure respite care to increase the alternatives to homelessness, and that we can chip away at it little by little, and if we can keep a few people off the street, I think it'll make a difference in the long run. Public Works, it has a very ambitious schedule this coming up summer, and you can look on the website to see what they're going to be doing. As you know, none of your property tax, or maybe you don't know this, I didn't know this, none of your property taxes go to support road improvements. That comes from the gas tax, the weight mile tax, fees, and license things. So the majority of revenue does come from the state, and they also get federal funds. So they're working on a variety of different projects, which includes bridges, gravel, repaving, things like that. And as I mentioned earlier, we have these community advisory groups, so no one person is determining what roads are going to be paved. RIAC, which is the Road Improvement Advisory Committee, it's a group of people in the county who get together and say, what roads are going to be paved, and they work on that. Same thing with our budget committee, same thing with a variety of other different things that go on in the county that community partners and folks in the community are helping out. The commissioners have approved, using your tax dollars, the homeless shelter, which is the Gospel Rescue Mission. For those of you who've been involved in that, Kay Sawyer, who actually working for YCOM as a dispatcher, used to get calls about women alone with children sleeping in parking lots, and used to make collections from the fire and the police and sheriff's deputies to get hotel rooms. She started this mission, and now with the help of everybody who's gathered together to see this thing grow, it's going to grow to a point where we can actually make an impact on the homeless situation in our county. The county commissioners have voted to approve a free dental clinic for funding for that. A spay-neuter clinic. We know we've got an issue in this county which is really affecting not only public health, animal welfare, but also folks who are wondering, what do I do with this box of kittens somebody just dumped under my porch? So we're working on that. And we also paid off a state loan early, which saved $300,000 in interest. So little by little you save money, and you see that going forward this restraint has turned out to show that we have a pretty good bottom line. I guess that's it. So now you're going to have to just listen to me without any pictures. So what I wanted to just say, that bottom line is your county is on solid financial ground. We have shown restraint in the past, not spent money on everything we wanted to, and really, as the past boards of commissioners, have spent money on what really needs to happen, the core functions of government. Future concerns loom, however. As you know, there's a PERS increase coming, and our county is on the hook for $542,000 increase in PERS. Fortunately, we put aside $1.6 million in case this was going to happen, but that's going to get eaten up in short order. Commissioners have been prioritizing what's important. We are going to see, for instance, the state is now talking about a $1.5 billion shortfall. How is that going to affect some of the county's programs? We don't know. So that's why we have to budget conservatively and try to make sure we've got money set aside for a rainy day. What the commissioners do on a daily basis is, I know that we spend a lot of time dealing with constituent issues, also prioritize in our liaison departments. Commissioner Primizic, who is here, is liaison to Public Works and Veterans and Parks and Economic Development, really focusing on transportation issues. We belong to Association of Oregon Counties, so we work on issues at the state level. So for instance, we're working on legislative issues. We're also working on issues related to our liaison. My liaison duties include Health and Human Services, and that's one that I'm really passionate about. And what I've been doing is working intimately with parents who have DHS involved issues. So for instance, if a parent has an issue with DHS, where do they go? We have CASA for the foster kids. We don't have anything for foster parents who are saying, my kids were taken away. We say, okay, go figure it out. So we began something called the Parent Navigator Program, and that teaches our community partners how to help folks. They have the willpower, they don't have the way power to get their kids back. So if we can do that, we can navigate the system, which is extremely complex. So I was very proud about that. Also, something that I wanted to see happen, and I was glad that the commissioners agreed, and the sheriff's office is going to administer this, and that's an countywide emergency notification system. So when you hear about Cascadia and the subduction zone they're talking about and all of the issues that could affect us, whether it's wildfire or an active shooter, a countywide emergency notification system will make communicating in tiny little pockets and tiny areas, it will make that just a breeze instead of trying to go through this complex maze of 10 jurisdictions and many different fire departments. Yamhill County CCO, which is the group in this county that administers Medicaid. I'm on the board there and been working on that. Also, we've been having town halls in every city with, we've got 4 down and 6 to go, and carry it across the finish line and do something and make it happen. In Amity, somebody talked about watching a woman stand in the rain with no bus shelter, and we were able to just call who need to be called, and there's a bus shelter on its way. So really, we just need to hear what the issues are. And but as I said, and I'm going to wrap it up because I know a lot of you have to get back to work or have questions, but I want to say that our county is more than budgets and more than numbers. It's a benevolent group of people. I've lived in 8 counties in my life, 25 in this county, and I can tell you I have never seen anything like the benevolence, the compassion, the involvement that is in this community. And I don't know what to attribute it to other than it's the synergy that goes on, that people kind of wind up helping other people as a matter of it's what their heart tells them to do. So it's pretty impressive, and I'll end with this one quote. Thomas Jefferson is somebody I think just nailed it when it came to good government. He said, "A wise and frugal government which shall restrain men from injuring themselves, which shall leave them otherwise free to pursue their individual liberties and regulate industry and improvement, and shall not take from the mouth of labor the bread that it has earned." That's good government, and I think you have that here in Yamhill County. Thank you.